After the disastrous shootings in Umpqua, Oregon, Fox and Friends decided to take on the issue of guns, gun control, and of course it's going to be as ridiculous as you would expect.
Donald Trump earlier on the show says that these gun-free zones are a complete disaster. Listen to Trump just a few minutes ago.
That was a gun-free zone in Oregon where they had no guns allowed, no nothing. So the only one that had the gun was the bad guy, and everybody was sitting there, and there was nothing they could do, not a thing they could do. Actually, the police did a fantastic job getting in that quickly, but there was nobody with any protection, and wouldn't they have been better off if somebody in the room, anybody, anybody had a gun to at least help them out? But it was a terrible thing, and these gun-free zones are a disaster because everybody's just a sitting duck.
You can mock Trump, but this is a rational point. When there's a drunk driving accident, you don't ban cars, you try to prevent drunk people from driving them. The idea that taking guns away from the law-abiding will make us safer is insane and childish.
Yeah, we just talked yesterday about the number of guns in American households has actually gone down as these mass shootings have gone up.
Exactly.
So can you blame more guns?
Nobody's talking about banning guns. Carson starts off with a very false premise that liberals are out there, ban all guns, that's going to solve the problem. No, that's not where we're at. That's actually not what we're talking about at all. That is a straw man, and it's a fucking bold-faced lie. They set up that straw man, and they just knock it down. Well, obviously, liberals just want to ban guns. No, you moron. We don't. We actually want sensible solutions. If that involves, I don't know, regulating a certain type of gun, okay. Let's have that conversation. But no, they don't want to have the conversation because they started off on a completely false premise. All right. And now, first of all, what Carlson said. Well, taking away guns from the law-abiding will make us safer is insane and childish. No, I kind of agree with that. And also, I agree with the idea that arming everyone will also make us safer. That is also insane and childish. Both sides, insane and childish. You kind of got to get away from those two extremes and have a conversation. And an actual conversation, not the bullshit conversations that we have been having. Okay. Now, another bullshit thing in this segment. Do you notice that they claimed that UCC was a gun-free zone? Now, in practice, in the school rules, they don't want you bringing in guns. They don't want you bringing in knives. But part of that handbook says that, look, you shouldn't bring in this stuff unless the law says you can. Which in Oregon, in this area, concealed carry is the law of the land, which means that the schools cannot prevent you from concealed carry. So it's not a gun-free zone because there were people with guns there and they were legal. Now, as I said, according to the law, 1989 Oregon law forbids any public body except the legislator from restricting the rights of concealed weapon permit holders to bring guns where they wish. So, as I said, everybody with a concealed weapons permit can bring their guns on campus. The school can't say shit. Now, on that, Trump said, oh, if only there was a good guy with a gun there. But there was a good guy with a gun. He was there. And you know what? He decided not to use it because at the point where he found out what was going on and was actually going to try to help, the SWAT team was already there. He didn't want to get confused for a bad guy. How can you tell a good guy with a gun with a bad guy with a gun? You really can't. And so that's the argument against arming everyone. How can you tell a good guy from a gun from a bad guy with a gun? Do you want to be the police officer who has to make that decision on who's a good guy and who's a bad guy? Could you tell? No, most people can't. Nobody can. That's why it's not a good idea to arm everyone. So I'm saying, like, this guy, and it's not like this guy's like a lib on gun issues. This guy, the good guy with the gun in this situation, decided not to use it because it was smart to not use it. He sat back and said, hey, I'm going to let the professionals handle this one. Okay? I don't want to get confused with the bad guy here. He actually used common sense. Imagine that, right? As opposed to the people on Fox News. Now, speaking of not having common sense, they're going to bring up Australia. Oh, look at this astounding display of absolute ignorance. Watch.
The other side of that argument, though, of course, is in what people always throw out there is like, look at Australia. They have no gun violence. They don't have guns. Citizens aren't allowed to have guns.
They also have no freedom. You can go to prison for expressing unpopular views in Australia, and people do. And in Western Europe, by the way, and in Canada. No one ever says that.
That is the other side of the argument, that if this guy had a knife instead of a gun, would all of those people have been killed, or would fewer people have been hurt?
But also, we have a Bill of
Wouldn't he
Rights.
have been going through there, storming in there in the first place if it wasn't a gun-free zone? I mean, if you know that, that's where we're seeing these mass shootings happen. It's not in places where you know there's going to be guns. It's where places that these gunmen know there will not be guns to stop them.
It's not a gun-free zone. I just pointed that out. There's concealed carry there because of Oregon law. Once again, she still gets it wrong. Okay. Anyway, as for the Australia part, she's absolutely wrong. You can have guns in Australia. They didn't just ban guns outright, okay? They still have guns in Australia, albeit a lot less than America, but then again, nobody has as many guns as America. Maybe Yemen, maybe Somalia, but we're pretty fucking close. In Australia, to get a gun, you can get one, but there's a very strict process on how to get one. Now, let's talk about that. Okay, according to the news agency SBS, a person looking to own a firearm in Australia needs both a license and a permit. Okay, sounds good. Now, how do you get a license? Well, you must be 18 years or older, judged as a fit and proper person, whatever that means, have undergone a firearms safety and training course, and have provided documentation about the storage arrangements in which they will secure the firearm to get a license. Now, also, you must also prove a genuine reason to have a firearms license. Like if you're a hunter, like if you're a sports shooter, okay, you fill that out. That's my reason. I want a gun because that's my reason, right? So you fill out that application form. Now once again, I said that you provide supporting documents such as proof of safety training course or club membership. So yes, you can have a gun in Australia if you pass these certain checks and prove that you have a good reason to own a gun. Not just like, I don't know, the government's out to get me, so I'm just going to collect 17 guns in a shed. Not exactly the best reason, but okay. Well, I guess we can disagree on that one because I'm sure some people will. All right. So, but on the issue of no freedom? No freedom. Australia doesn't have freedom. Oh, because one, they don't have guns, right? But also, well, they have hate speech laws. So obviously you go to jail if you say something bad about somebody else for having an opinion. No, it actually doesn't happen. And let's go to a study about freedom released in August called the Human Freedom Index. Now, what this did is that it took each country where it's possible to get enough data to evaluate individual freedom, right? So North Korea, you're not on the list, right? And it scores it on a scale of 1 to 10 for both personal freedom and economic freedom, and then it ranks them based on the average of two different scores. Now, what sort of freedoms do they look at when compiling this list? Rule of law, security and safety, movement, religion, association, assembly, and civil society, expression, relationship, size of government, legal system and property rights, access to sound money, freedom to trade internationally, and finally, regulation of credit, labor, and business. And who ranked in the top 10 in this year's report? They were in order: Hong Kong, Switzerland, Finland, Denmark, New Zealand, Canada, Australia, Ireland, the United Kingdom, and Sweden. Well, who's missing? The United States. Where was the United States ranked in freedom? It was ranked 20th between Mauritius, I can't even say the name of that country, and the Czech Republic. Mauritius? I don't know. I've never heard of this country before. And the Czech Republic. Now, wait a minute here. This was done in a partnership by the Cato Institute, a libertarian, freedom-oriented think tank, and with some other organizations as well, to do this freedom report. And they still found the United States is 20th. We're ranked 20th in freedom. And by the way, economic freedom is a part of that. Do you know what the minimum wage is in Australia? $15 an hour. they have more economic freedom than America. Oh, that's strange. And they have more personal freedom than America. Well, wait a minute here. I thought more guns equaled more freedom. Most of the countries on this list have gun control, strict gun control. Even Switzerland. Now you're going to be like, no, Switzerland, dude, that's the gun owner's paradise. Everybody gets a gun. There's more guns and you have more freedom. Yeah, but those guns come with stipulations. First of all, in Switzerland, you have to serve in the military in order to get guns, which means you have to be fit to serve and not mentally disturbed. Already that weeds out a lot of people. You must serve in the military. It's mandatory. Then you take your weapon home. And then you have strict requirements on storage. You can't store ammunition and the gun in the same case. They have to be separate. And there's a litany of other regulations in Switzerland that regulate guns. So no, it's not the same. And yes, they do have more guns, but they have also, with more guns, they have more gun control. So you can't use Switzerland as an example unless you're talking about how more guns can be safer if you have more gun control with it. But I guess that doesn't fit in with the narrative now, does it? No. So more guns, I thought more guns equaled more freedom. I guess not. At least by these metrics. The United States, the United States has one gun for every man, woman, and child. How are we number 20th? If we followed NRA logic and ammosexual logic, we would be the most freest country in the world. But we are not. I guess they don't have a freedom. They do not have a freedom in Australia to be shot at any point in time. That's the freedom that they lack. The freedom to be shot anywhere. Okay, look. Now, I know some people are going to disagree with me. They're going to disagree, right? You're going to disagree with me. You're going to call me a goddamn gun-grabbing liberal. Fine, right? And that I hate everything America stands for. Okay, you can have your opinion. That is also your freedom. But even though you might disagree with me, you can't disagree that these hosts are being, at the very least, ignorant, if not misleading, about what they're talking about and how they don't know what they're talking about. Once again, claiming over and over and over the gun-free zone is the gun-free zone. If only there was a good guy with a gun. Well, there was. There was a good guy with a gun. There were other potential good guys with a gun, as more than just one person open carried on that campus. But they want to ignore that. They want to ignore that. Of course they do. Because they're being dishonest. Or at the very least, as I said, ignorant. And what it comes down to, if you are that misleading, if you have to lie, if you're right, let's look at it on the other hand. If you're right, then you don't need to lie or distort facts to push an agenda. You just don't have to. And if you do have to lie, if you do have to distort facts, then maybe you're not as right as you think you are.